Batter up.
Frog and Chris, they're on the air. Yankees, Mets, they're everywhere. From the Bronx to Queens, the diamond gleams. MLB talk, the ultimate team. MLB is the place to be. Frog and Chris with the pitch you'll see. Swinging stacks and stories fly. Baseball talk that's amplified.
And welcome to a new episode of NYMLB Talk with your hosts Rob and Chris as we cover the Mets, the Yankees, and all of Major League Baseball. And if you're on YouTube right now, hit that sub button. We would appreciate that as well. You could follow Rob at Armorowski. You could follow myself at CP7NY. You could also find us on TikTok. You could also find us at Twitter/X at NYMLB Talk. Tonight, we got a great guest. Rob, introduce him.
Yeah, welcome back to our good friend, former Mets manager Mickey Callaway. How you doing, Mick?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward to a good holiday season here and talking a little baseball.
Yeah, and there is a lot to talk about, especially with the New York Mets. And we definitely, let's get right to it. We want to know what your take is with all that's gone on with the Mets. You know, the core is broken up. The last three guys that were on the team when you managed, Nimmo, Diaz, and Alonso, are now gone. What's your take on this?
Yeah, you know, I'm sure it's difficult for the fans, first and foremost, right? These are the three guys that have been their mainstays for the last, 6, 7 years. So I'm sure it's a very tough pill to swallow for the fans. These New York fans deserve the best. And, I think that the goal of the front office, the ownership, and the players is to give them the best. And it sounds like they feel like this is the route to go. I think, some of it was obviously out of their hands. I think that Edwin Diaz in particular was a surprise to me. But it sounds like Edwin wanted to go over to the Dodgers, and who can blame him, right? I mean, they're winning year in and year out. They're going to win again next year. And, that's something he hasn't been a consistent part of in his career. So he wants to go win a World Series. And I think he feels that the best chance to do that is to go there and make about the same kind of money. I think that the Mets would have loved to have had Diaz back in a perfect world, because that's hard to replace. I know they think that Williams can step in and do the job, and he might be able to do that, but that's a big risk you're taking, because we know the fluctuation of how relievers go. Look at Edwin Diaz. When you move teams, and Edwin came over to the Mets, he struggled a little bit. And sometimes that happens. And that happens with relievers in general. They're kind of up and down. They're volatile, and you don't know what you're going to get from year to year. It sounds like they liked the metrics and everything that Williams put up this year, even though the numbers weren't great. They feel like he's going to bounce back and do what he did a couple of years ago. And let's all hope that happens, and he can fill, in and take place of the best closer in baseball, which is what Edwin Diaz was in my mind. The one thing that's going to stink for the fans is when Edwin Diaz comes out of the dugout or comes out of the bullpen and jogs into the game. That is awesome. And that's what you want at the end of the game, right? You want that energy where, hey, we're about to win a game because we have the best closer. He has the coolest song. He does this. He comes in. It's intimidating, and it's fun for the fans. That's probably what they're going to miss the most as far as Edwin Diaz goes.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
buy into that whole thing with Diaz being upset that they didn't call him first when they were going to sign Devin Williams, and he kind of took that as an insult. Do you buy into that at all, or do you think he just wanted to go to the Dodgers?
Hey, look, everybody's different. And you know what I've come to learn is the stuff you hear is not necessarily true, right? And guys will use anything they can. Owners, front office guys, and players are going to use anything they can to, use it as leverage to put them in the best possible light or the best possible situation. So I'm not sure that that's necessarily true. You probably should talk to your closer, bringing in another top tier guy that's closed in his career. Hold on one second, my ears aren't very big, but we know he's going to be the closer no matter who they go get. Maybe they were getting Williams to be the 7th, 8th inning guy that can pitch in high leverage situations from the 6th, 7th, and 8th. If you had both of them on the team, and I would use Williams, 6th, 7th, and 8th, whatever the highest leverage situation is in those innings, and keep Edwin Diaz as the closer. That's what I think they probably were looking and wanting to do, and then Edwin ends up leaving. So they've got a good backup plan with Williams.
All right, Mick, we have a question. This is from actually Bill, who is the Met puppet. He wants to know if if you were running the organization, would you have given Pete the Baltimore deal or more?
Yeah, I would have kept Pete around. I think that it's hard to replace that power bat, and I know if I know anything about Pete would have loved to have stayed and been a Met for the rest of his life. I think that that's just I'm not sure what the front office is thinking in this moment. Maybe they're thinking what we all are thinking is, look, this has been our core for 6-7 years, and we haven't gotten the job done. So let's start to switch it up.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just have to do that, as you know. What about Nimmo? Because you managed Nimmo, obviously. Did you think it was time for Nimmo to move on?
I love Nimmo as a guy. I love him as a bat. I love him as a player. He's just the salt of the earth type guy. It sounds like they are going to focus on defense, and I tend to agree. Right? Look at the two teams that were in the World Series. Elite defense. And pitching and defense, we all know this. This is the biggest cliche of all time. Pitching and defense wins championships. So I think that was their main reason for getting, or at least asking Nimmo if he would accept or waive his no trade clause. Going in, once you ask a player to waive his no trade clause, that he's gone. He's going to feel unwanted.
Yep.
And that's tough to come back from. So right when they asked him, he's going to leave. Or you're going to have a bitter player on your hands. And obviously his situation, which he earned because he has been a great player for the Mets in the past. He earned that no trade clause, and they had to ask him. So I think that was just more of a defense thing. I'm sure they love his on-base percentage. They love him at the plate, but they are focused on defense, and they should be.
The part I don't understand with the defense, right, is that you're saying that about Alonso too, right? Alonso's not a good defender at first. We know that. But now you sign Polanco to play first base, and he's never played first base before. So you're really taking a chance there. I mean, the guy could be maybe he's going to turn out to be a solid first baseman. It's possible, but you don't know. He's never played the position. How do they do that? Right.
Yeah. And first base is very hard, right? It's not an easy position just to take up. Now, Polanco is an extremely good athlete. He's played good defense and the spots he's been in before. And I really like Polanco a lot as a player. I remember when he was with the Twins or whatever back in the day, very early in his career, I was like, oh, this kid's going to be pretty good. But yeah, you don't know, right? And I have to say, Pete is not that bad at first base. I've seen way worse first basemen on championship teams. And Pete Alonso is the polar bear, man. I would have loved to see him stay a Met for the rest of his career. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But I think they would have loved to have kept Pete. But it just didn't work out for whatever reason.
Mick, now I was checking out the New York Post article that I guess you did a phone interview with the New York Post, and you said that you sort of agree with what's going on, but that they better get it right or else the fans are going to be mad.
Right. Yeah. And that's the truth, right? You can't get rid of your three best mainstay players that you've had for 6 or 7 years that actually produce. It's not like they were struggling, and then go out there and continue to have, an 83 win season. If you do that, somebody needs to be on the chopping block and needs to be gone, because that's just, then you've just kind of not done the right thing in my mind. And the fans deserve the best. And like I said before, there's no doubt in my mind, hey, David Stearns is a great GM. I don't care what people say. He knows what he's doing. It's not easy to go out there and assemble a team and win, right? You have 29 other teams that are trying to do the same thing. So I think that he understands that they need to be better on defense and they need to be better in pitching. The thing that bothers me about their whole thing is, when you're spending that much money, you got to have a better starting pitching staff. I'm sorry, you got to be pitching 6-7 innings every night out of your top 3 starters. If you're going to have that kind of those kind of salaries or that kind of payroll, you got to have some stud pitchers at the front of your rotation, and you better be able to play defense. You look at the teams that can win. That's what goes on historically.
Yeah, and let's bring up Lindor for a second. When you were coach with Cleveland, Lindor was there, young player. Now we're hearing a lot about problems in the clubhouse. What do you think about that? From what you've heard about problems in the clubhouse with Lindor?
Yeah, well, if there's problems in the clubhouse, it's not on Lindor. This kid comes to play every single day, unless he's changed for whatever reason, which I can't imagine that he has. He is a leader, and he comes to play every single day. He's serious about it. Hey, look, he likes to smile and have fun. We all know that. That's great. I love it. But I promise you, it's not a lack of effort or lack of concentration. This kid wants to be the best in the world. He's one of the best in the world. And it's not on Lindor. I've seen him stand up when he's a rookie in front of the team and say amazing things. And I can't imagine that, some of this stuff is on him.
Do you feel like
or
maybe
any of that stuff is on him? He is quality.
Do you think maybe it's something with Soto? Because since he's come on, he's got the big contract, obviously. He's backed it up. Not saying that his play is speaking for itself, but do you think that you think he's making some of these moves or forcing some of these moves to get rid of some of those guys, and maybe he wants to bring in some of people that he's comfortable with? Does that have you think?
Hey, it could be, right? I've seen that before. Once you get the high-powered star that is getting paid the way that they're getting paid, then they do have some say. I don't know what's going on in that clubhouse. I can't tell you. I'm not there every day. But, those things have happened in other clubhouses. And, it's just something you have to deal with. You got to be careful who you pay, right? You just have to be, because if you pay the wrong person, it can really cost your culture. And I think, and I know David Stearns is trying to build a culture. He understands that to win consistently, you have to build a culture. And I'm really glad they're sticking with Mendy as the manager, right? You can't be going two years with managers and build a culture. And David Stearns knows that. He's going to stick with Mendy, and they're going to try to get the right players in there, or, try to get a culture going that they haven't been able to for the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. Did you notice any difference in his style last year compared to the season before that?
No, but honestly, I didn't keep up with it, as much as most, right? I'd check in on the box stores, read some stuff, listen to some interviews. So I didn't really notice anything.
Yeah. Okay. Chris, you wanted to say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I was going to ask just about the kind of the same question. Like Mendoza, has he changed at all from his first? Or I would think he changed a little bit just because of a little bit more experience, and maybe in the third season, coming up, he might even change a little bit more, right? It's
Yeah,
just
and right,
right.
and you should, right? You really
Yeah.
should. You don't go into this job or any job as a player, a coach, a manager, a GM, an owner, right? You have to be making adjustments on, a weekly, monthly, yearly basis. And if you're not, then you need to be gone. And I'm sure that Mindy is. He's got a great reputation in the game. He's done a great job with the Mets. Look, they didn't have the season they wanted to this year. Obviously, he's put up some winning numbers in the past. And, I think that he's going to continue to grow, continue to learn. Terry Francona, Buck Showalter, all those guys, they went through their struggles in their career. And they learned from it, and they bounced back and kind of weathered the storm and became great managers. And that's going to be the route for any Hall of Fame manager. You're going to struggle at first. You're not going to know what you're doing. I'm sorry, no matter who you are. I don't care who you are. You're not going to step in there. You got things that you've never dealt with before coming your way. You can sit around Terry Francona. You can sit around, Bruce Bochy, whomever. And until you deal with it personally, it's going to be different. You can see how they deal with it. But you have to understand that you have to keep on making adjustments, keep on learning from your mistakes, learning from your decisions, learning from the way you talk to the media. You have to learn. This is how we go about life. This is any job. You have to continue to get better and better. You have to understand that you're not perfect, and you have to go out there and build a culture and allow the players to go out there and play.
Mick, I wanted to ask you this question. How hard was it for you to go from pitching coach with the Indians to manager of the New York Mets?
Oh, you know what? It was extremely difficult, and it's something that you cannot prepare yourself for, right? I'm in Cleveland as the pitching coach with 2 beat writers, right? That's what I witnessed, right? I didn't follow the Mets. I didn't know, my whole baseball career. Obviously I knew who the Mets were and stuff, but I didn't know all the ins and outs of all the stuff that has gone on in Mets history. So obviously I went in just with, hey, here I am. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. And that's what I did, and I'm proud of what we did there. Right. I mean, they had 2 or 3 winning seasons in 12 years there. And I came in and I think we did a pretty good job. We a 7-game improvement my first year, another 9-game improvement with a winning record my second year. And I felt like we were starting to build a culture. And I loved the way we were playing in the second half of my second season. We were the best team in baseball in my mind that year.
Yeah, you were. And we've
without a doubt.
We've mentioned this before. If Diaz pitched the way Diaz pitched in Seattle, the Mets, you guys would have made the postseason.
Absolutely. And I loved us as a postseason team, right? Postseason teams are postseason rosters and regular season rosters. They're different. You give me Jacob deGrom, Zach Wheeler, and, those guys in the playoffs, you're going to do some damage.
Yeah, Syndergaard.
Syndergaard too.
You put one of your starters in the bullpen. I loved our team. If we would have gotten to the playoffs, unfortunately, we were a couple games behind and we didn't get that chance.
Yeah.
Mickey, what happened with? I should say it this way: with what's going on now, they're saying with Lindor, Soto, all the different issues possibly. Do you think they're calling Mendoza up now and saying, hey, what's going, is this really going on? Can you, is he being asked about it? Do you think he's getting involved? Do you think he's talking to the players? What do you think is going on from the managers? point of
Yeah.
view.
What is probably going through Mindy's mind is like, hey, I got to get this under control. Whether that stuff that's out in the media is true or not, I have to make sure that this is not an issue in the clubhouse, right? If you got two players that aren't getting along, that's what the manager is there for, right? Nobody else is going to do that. Hey, we all know that phrase, however it goes, is like, if the best teams, the players lead, right? But if you have those two guys in there and there's a rift, the manager has to step in and kind of squash that and figure out how to get these guys to get along so the players can go lead so they can win a championship. Because those are just battles, and I fought them when I was there. Those kind of things are distractions from you winning games. All of everything else is a distraction, and you have to just let all that be a distraction. But you have to bring your teammates together, your team together, and make sure that they're all on the same page. No matter what's going on in the atmosphere around them, they have to be pulling on the same rope and being on the same bus and going out there and playing to win.
Right.
Yeah. How difficult was it to deal with the New York media in the beginning when you were named New York Mets manager? We know how crazy it gets after the games, post game, and how crazy it gets with the press. It's a totally different, like you said, totally different atmosphere. Two beat writers in Cleveland and then massive media in New York.
Yeah, you know what, the actual content and stuff never bothered me. It was time consuming. I think it's so time consuming there that a lot of times you don't have time. You're prepping for the media. You're talking to the media. You're doing this. You're having meetings about this thing that was written, that thing that was written. And it takes away from your time with the players. I threw the first group of BP every day just so I could tell everybody, hey, I got to get out on the field and get warmed up so I can go out there and throw the first group of BP, which most managers don't do. And I did it because I want to get out there and be with the players. They got to see me. And the media there really takes a lot of time. They're going to write what they're going to write.
Yeah.
We talked about things in the clubhouse, and if things were written that weren't true, hey, I got on some guys in the media when they wrote stuff about some of my players. That was my job. I'd call them aside and I'd call them out. And that's what you have to do. They didn't like it. And another thing I never did is I didn't sit there and talk behind anybody's back. Not one person. I had everybody's back in the organization. I know there's people leaking stuff, and hopefully that is not going on anymore. But you can't win championships when you have people in your organization leaking stuff to the media.
Yeah.
That's not an organization. That's a bunch of individuals looking out for themselves, right? That's politics. That's what's going on in our crazy world in this land of politics that we see every day, and that stuff's crazy. You have to be a cohesive unit from top to bottom. I don't care if you're the bullpen catcher in A ball all the way up to the owner. There can be no backstabbing and stuff like that going on. And, I think, unfortunately, that's just part of the world that we live in, and that happens. And hopefully that the Mets, I want the Mets to win, right? I care about the Mets because I spent 2 great years there. I will always be, so grateful to the New York fans for having me. I don't care, how they feel about me. I went out there and I did the best I could for them every single day. Obviously I made mistakes. I learned from those mistakes, but I had a blast, and it's going to be 2 of the best years that, I'll look back on when I'm older and talk to my grandkids and stuff about, and I'll talk to them about how awesome it was to be the Mets manager. But you have to take all that with a grain of salt and continue to do your job, and no matter what's being said, and make sure that you nip that stuff in the bud so it doesn't affect your clubhouse. And I think we did a pretty good job of that. We didn't have many rifts between the players when I was there. We just kind of said, hey, let them do their thing. Let's all concentrate on playing hard, going out there and being the best we can be. And my teams played hard. I know, a lot of people think, well, they should play hard. They're Major League Baseball players, but that's just not the reality of the situation. Things can get under guys' skin. Like, obviously, we're seeing a little bit of it now where you get two players going back and forth, and it's probably something that was created that's not even there, right? Who knows? We don't know what it is, but it's a tough thing to go out there and just kind of wave off everything that's being said, but you have to do it, and you have to go out there and concentrate on winning baseball games.
Do you think with the team itself, aside from the manager and the coaches, do you think there needs to be a leader on the team? Do you think they need to name, let's say, Lindor or Soto or somebody captain of that team? And getting back with Soto, I mean, Soto's the big money guy. He's going to be there 14 years, whatever amount of money he's getting. And then you got Lindor, who probably should be named captain because he's been there already a few years, and he seems like the leader of the team. Like, how do you handle that situation?
Well, that's a tricky one, especially if there's any truth to any kind of a rift between the two. You can't name one. You would have to name them co-captains, and I'm not sure you need a co-captain. Hey, look, every player on the team needs to be a leader and take responsibility for themselves and the guy standing next to them. And if you can't do that, you're not going to be a special team, and you're not going to win championships. Aaron Judge, he is obviously a guy that, even though there's multiple stars on that team, that is a guy that you give the leadership status to, the captain status to, because everybody on the team there's not going to be one person that has a riff with Aaron Judge ever, in my opinion, right?
Right.
I mean, first of all, he's 6'8". You don't want to have one with him, right? But second of all, he's the epitome of a leader in my mind. What I see, the way he goes about his business, the way he talks, the way he plays the game. I think that's what you need. As far as the Mets go, look, you either have to name them co-captains, or you don't have an actual captain, and you stress to everybody that, hey, you're the captain. When somebody needs to be shoved into a locker and tell them to hustle, that's all of your jobs. One of you get it done.
That makes sense. I mean, that does make sense. I want to get back to Pete Alonso for a second, because I think you said that Pete would be or should be the next David Wright. Did you think Pete would be a Met for life? Did you?
Yeah. No, so, I know you didn't finish answering that question, but I think that, asking that question.
That's okay. No, that's good.
When I saw him in spring training, I was like, wow, this guy has some power. I didn't know what we were going to see. I didn't know what we were going to get. I didn't even know if he was going to make the team until the end. And then you get into the season, and I saw the season that he had, and I didn't think of anything other than, oh, well, they're going to keep this guy a Met for life. I mean, who comes in their rookie season, wins Rookie of the Year, hits a ton of homers and has, unbelievable year at the plate, and he's just going to continue to do that or get better. You're, as a baseball player, you're going to have some ups and downs, but for me, Pete's been pretty much like this, the whole time. It's been pretty impressive to watch him do that, and that's very, very rare that somebody can go do that. So I thought for sure that he would stay a Met for life. It didn't work out, but hopefully the fans understand that Pete probably would have loved to have stayed.
Yeah, right now, listen, the fans are in shock because you lose three of your favorite players, right? So they're in shock. It's shocking, seeing Pete in that Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah, that was weird. I saw that. I was like, that just doesn't look right.
It doesn't look right. It may be, it's just a uniform, and we will, people now say, well, you're basically rooting for a jersey or for a shirt, which, if you're a fan of a team, Chris, right? Basically, that is the truth.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's what you're rooting for. You're rooting for, the uniform. You're not really. I'm obviously you're rooting for the player, but once the player leaves your team, you're not going to root for him anymore. Like Yankee fans aren't rooting for Soto anymore, right? Because he left the Yankees. He's on the Mets now. So, and vice versa. So yeah, absolutely. You're basically rooting for laundry. I think Seinfeld has said that.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, he has. That's another thing. Mick, when you're managing a team in New York, you also have a lot of celebrities that dropped in. How did that go for you? Was there anyone in particular? Because we know that Seinfeld is a Met fan, and Kevin James from the King of Queens is a big Met fan. How did that go? Did you end up meeting a lot of those guys?
Yeah, I did. I got to meet quite a few guys, and I have my pictures with them, and that's
Nice.
That's pretty cool. But I did get to talk to Seinfeld for quite a while up in his box during BP. He was there early, and we just kind of sat there and talked for a while. So he obviously was my favorite. I love Seinfeld. I watch Seinfeld still almost every single night. I'll be cooking in the kitchen or whatever, and I'll have Seinfeld on in the background because it's so brilliant the way it was written. You can never catch everything, right?
Yeah.
So I've probably seen every Seinfeld episode 20 times, and I'm still seeing things that I didn't catch the first time. So he's my favorite. But you meet a lot of guys, and that was a great part of it. Obviously, that's really fun.
Yeah, that definitely does look fun. And with Seinfeld, of course, Keith was on a 2-parter, which was great.
He was great. Buck was great when he was on there. Keith was great. I like watching all the Jeter and all those guys, Bernie, all those guys that were on some of those episodes. That was fun to watch.
Now, I know you told us a story about the broadcasters taking you into the clubhouse that you weren't supposed to see. How did you get along with the broadcast booth?
Oh, I loved them. They're great, obviously. They would come down. I had to talk to them on a daily basis. They'd come down, sit in whatever office I would be at on the road or at home. And, we'd kind of talk about whatever it is they wanted to talk about that day. So they were great. They were great to me. And they're the best broadcasters in the country to me. I love them. They're awesome to watch, and they do a great job back there. And I know the fans love them as well.
Yeah, they're great. They are the best booth. Chris, you have to admit they're pretty great, right?
Oh, absolutely. They're one of the best. I always say, listen, those guys are great, and I think both New York teams have probably the best guys in the booth, right? The Yankees, right? Between you got Michael Kay, David Cohn is great, Girardi's great, O'Neill is great.
Yeah.
I just wish they had a more consistent group like the Mets do, right? They always have the main 3 guys, but I think Bill asked a good question here. And I just mentioned David Cohn because he actually answered this once. How many quality starters do we need to start the season? I know David Cohn brought this up many times on the Yankee broadcast. He said a team should go in to a season with 10 starters, right, throughout the organization. Like, obviously not 10 starters on your opening day roster, but you have your 5 and then maybe 1 or 2 in the bullpen that you could stretch out, or even guys in AAA that you could count on to bring up. So what are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, so the average major league team uses about 11 starters per year. So Coney's right. You have to have 10 quality starters. Look, you're going to have 5 that make the team. 2 or 3 of those are going to get injured. Right. So you're going to have, guys come up and take their spot. Some of those guys aren't going to be effective. So, those guys are going to have, the guys behind them are going to have to take their place. So you have to have 5, starters that make the team, and you better have 5 or 6 in AAA and AA that can come up there and compete. Look at the kid that came from A-ball that pitched for the Blue Jays. Right. You got to have guys like that in your organization. When I won a World Series in Anaheim, we had Lackey in AAA. We had Scott Shields in AAA. I came up and made 7 starts right at the end of the season and pitched decent. Obviously I wasn't a great pitcher, but I came up and helped them win some games. And you have to have guys that can come up and do that. Not only are you going to see, guys come up and help out during the season, but hopefully some of those guys you have in the minor leagues are going to help out in the playoffs. And if you can get that, then you have a real nice deep roster that's going to be able to cover you for injuries and keep you competitive when some of those better pitchers are injured or need some rest or have a blister or whatever it is, because somebody's going to blow, and especially the two of your guys is going to blow out and be out for a year. So you got to be able to replace these guys, and you got to replace them quickly. Obviously the trade deadline helps if it's that time of the year or whatever, but you got to step it up and make sure that you have some depth. You better pay some guys in AAA to come over there that can step into your rotation and at least be competitive and give you 5 innings with 3 or 4 runs, keep you in the game.
Now the Mets, listen, the Mets they have to make some moves. Starting pitching wise, we know they have some stuff to do. Center field, they need a center fielder. Taylor is a good, he's a good backup, but they're not going to win anything with him as a starting center fielder. We know that. Great backup, but that's just not going to happen. And Soto needs protection. So Mick, people out there, free agents or trades, what do you see the Mets doing right now? Because they have to fill those needs.
Yeah, they're going to have to fill all those needs, right? And you got to go get 2 or 3 starting pitchers in my mind. We talked about it earlier. You can't spend that kind of money and have the starting staff that you have. You have to be pitching into the 6th, into the 7th. You better go, develop some guys really quick, or you better go sign some guys that have a chance at making the Hall of Fame. But as far as the defense goes, hey, let's get a good defender in center field that can swing the bat a little bit. He doesn't have to be the best hitter of all time, but he better be able to run down everything in center field and help you have the best chance to have one of the best elite defensive teams in the league. And then you got to have somebody that can protect your boy Soto. He's got to be protected, right? Pete's gone. Who's going to protect him? I'm not sure.
Yeah, because Chris, what's going to happen without protection?
They're going to walk him 200 times in the season. He's going to have like 200 walks, right? If you don't have a guy behind him, right?
Right,
if
absolutely. And you know what? You might not. That might not hurt you as much during the season, but if you get into the playoffs, it'll really hurt you. I kind of go back to my own experiences when we played the Giants in 2002. They had Benito Santiago hitting behind Barry Bonds, and we just walked Barry Bonds every single time, and Benito Santiago came up and hit into a double play. And the 4 times we pitched to Barry, he hit him 4 homers, I think. The rest of it, it's like you have to have somebody behind him. Probably you have to have somebody in front of them. A lot of guys talk about, well, protection comes from the front. And it does to a certain degree, but you also, just to, really make the pitcher have some anxiety, you better have somebody hitting behind him as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Now
you got Lindor leading off. If he gets on, teams are going to think, all right, I don't want to walk Soto to be first and second, nobody out.
Right.
Exactly.
So
protection does come from the front for sure.
Yeah.
But you also have to have someone, let's be honest, you have to have somebody heading behind him.
No doubt.
Yeah. Good point, Chris. Really. Okay. We have what's our model saying?
Mets rotation. Now you got McLean, Peterson, Senga, Holmes, Manaea, Sprout, Tong, and Scott. Senga or Peterson have to get traded to upgrade the rotation. Now, the last time you were on, we did mention, should the Mets trade for Skubal? And you were like, yeah, trade everybody.
That's a no-brainer.
Right?
I would do everything I can to go get the best 2 pitchers that I possibly can. I would give up everybody for 2 pitchers. Yeah. And if you can do that or pay, I don't care what it is. If you have that kind of a salary available, then I'd go pay somebody. You got to get Skubal. You got to get a Paul Skeens. You need one of the best pitchers on the planet. Has to be on the team that's spending the most money. Otherwise, it makes no sense to go spend that much money. Like, think about it. You're going to go buy a mediocre car when you have, money to spend? You just don't do it. And pitching and defense, we know, is going to win a championship, and that's what they want to do.
Yeah, I think McLean is probably untouchable, but I don't know if anyone else is untouchable on that pitching staff right now.
And to sign, you said, you could still sign Valdez, you could sign Ranger Suarez. I mean, yeah, those guys are good, but to really make that impact, go out and trade for Skubal, make it happen.
Yeah,
except for McLean, like Rob said, I think everybody else is up for grabs.
Yeah, right. And listen, the Mets have the parts to trade. They have the best farm system in Major League Baseball right now, so they could make the trade with the Tigers, and the Tigers will get ready, Major League ready ball players already, which is what they're looking for. So, that would make me feel a lot better if the Mets did trade for Skubal, but who knows what's going on.
Right. I mean, that's why you build up to have the best farm system in Major League Baseball, is so you can go out and get those guys that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise, because you can't just always buy players. You're going to have to give up players to get players. Right. It's not always just going to be free agents coming in. You have to go trade your best prospects for the best pitcher in the world. And if you can do that, you're going to have a chance at winning. And that's been, and hey, look, don't get me wrong. The Mets are in a great spot. When I was there, the farm system wasn't very good.
Yeah.
They have built that culture up down there. They've obviously been doing amazing things at that level. And I know that was a big focus of Brodie Van Wagenen's when he came in. Hey, let's build up this farm system. And now they're to a point where they're the best one. That's pretty amazing. They did that in a fairly short amount of time. And now that you've done that, now let's go get some players so we can build that winning culture at the major league level, where we start winning on a year in and year out basis. Until you do that, you can, are we thinking about World Series or bust every year when we can't even, we're not even sure we're going to have a winning season?
That's right.
The Yankees have had 27 winning seasons in a year. And in a row. They can think about winning a World Series every single year. When you have had 5 winning seasons in the last 14, 15, 16 years, you better think about having winning seasons before you go win a World Series. And I think that's where the disconnect has been. But it sounds like they're really trying to build the culture, build everything to get to that point where we can win year in and year out, and then we can go really, hunt a championship. I remember when Cohen bought the team, he was like, hey, we're going to bring a championship the first 3 or 4 years. That's not how Major League Baseball works. It takes time. You better build a culture, and that culture needs to continue to be built year in and year out. And then you're not even guaranteed a World Series. How long has it been since the Yankees won a World Series? And they have winning seasons every year. It's tough. A lot of it's luck, and a lot of it's roster construction. And the players have to lead the teams to go win a championship.
Yeah, listen, Toronto almost won the World Series, right? I mean, they came so close. So you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
Chris,
and I think Toronto's the team that is doing exactly what I just talked about. I know their front office very, very well. And that's the approach they took. Ross Atkins is the GM. He was with me in Cleveland. He's an unbelievable, person. He's going to understand that there's going to be patience on the early years, and that's what they did, right? They weathered some storms. They brought these young kids up. They developed them, and now they paid them early, and they kept them around, and they supplemented with everything else, and they've taken their time. They've been patient. They're not firing a manager every 2 years. They're letting that manager stay there, build a culture so the players know what they're going to get year in, year out. That's a big adjustment to make when you're firing managers all the time. Now we got a new manager. What's this going to be like this year?
Right.
It's like a new season. You take any team chemistry that's been built for 2 years, you change the manager, it goes back to square one, right? That is like there's this method that the Army and stuff uses called the Tuckman's stages of group development. And anytime you add, especially the main leader around there, whether it's a player or a manager, you go back to square one in your group development phases, right? So now you have to build back up. And that's why I really love how David Stern stuck with Mindy. They have a great minor league system. And now they can really start going and making some moves to be a consistent winning team every year.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to build something. Mets fans, I guess, are just going to have to be patient. Cohen, buying the team as a fan of the team and, guaranteeing, in 5 years the Mets are going to win a World Series. You can't do that. We know that. Because it hasn't worked out. But I guess, you're right. It hurts to listen. The biggest loss to me was Alonso. Diaz, of course, you want him to be your closer, but I just had a feeling he wanted to be in LA because he feels like he has a better chance of winning a World Series. He wants that ring.
Yeah.
His brother pitched for the Dodgers last year, so his brother got into his ear also. And I don't know if because the Mets fired Hefner as a pitching coach, I don't know if that had anything to do with it either. That's what's in the media, but you don't know if that has anything to do with it. Do you think, Mick, the Mets firing a pitching coach that Diaz was comfortable with has anything to do with him leaving the team, or do you just think he wants to get that ring?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Edwin Diaz. I mean, so you're going to leave and you're going to go to another new pitching coach that you don't know. That makes no sense.
That's right.
Edwin Diaz at this point in his career needs no coaching. I mean, maintenance, absolutely.
Yeah.
Keep his arm healthy. Make sure, hey, you did this a little bit different. But right now, Edwin Diaz gets the ball and goes out there and shoves it up people's heinies when they go face him. It's not like he's some young guy trying to develop his mechanics and stuff. No, the pitching coach had nothing to do with this.
And we know that, but that's New York media again, right, Chris? That's what they were saying.
Yeah. And Mickey knows that too well, unfortunately, right? They start making up things and,
I mean, look at our media. Our media is our media. And it's whether it's politics, sports, whatever, you don't know who to listen to.
No.
So, and all of us are guessing because none of that stuff's very accurate in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally
Chris, so let's talk about the American League East for a couple of minutes with Mickey because he was talking about Toronto. The American League East is going to be a beast, I think, this year.
I mean, top to bottom. I mean, even listen, Tampa Bay might be the weakest team in there, but they're going to be a pain in the neck because now they're back in their dome. And how playing in the dome is, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that's been one of their issues, right, last year. And that couldn't have been an easy situation to go out there and try and win games. When you're playing in Tampa Bay, it sucks so bad when you have to go there as a player that you just play bad. I'm sorry. That's just how it is. Now, also, Kevin Cash is an amazing manager, and they do a great job of developing players, and they're one of these cultures that we're talking about.
Yep.
Low payroll. Everybody's pulling it. You're not going to have any rifts in their clubhouse. Everybody's just happy to be there and playing as hard as they can. So they have a great culture thing going, and culture means a lot towards winning.
Mick, how is it playing in that stadium?
It's terrible, man. I felt like I didn't know if I was playing a wiffle ball game or basketball. I didn't know what was going on up there.
You said the clubhouse was pretty nice, though, right?
Yeah, the clubhouse and the clubhouse attendants and everybody, they're amazing. The food was awesome, but man, when you go out on that field, it feels like you're like playing indoor soccer or something.
Well, there's your great example, Tampa, of keeping the manager and building a culture, right? Tampa Bay is like a perfect example of what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. You that's just what you have to do. You can't. Players and coaches, you got to give them some time. Now, there does come a time where it gets stagnant, right? I mean, there's a lot of, what's kind of interesting is there's a lot of scientific evidence and stuff. After 7 years or so, things become stagnant. We all know the 7-year marriage thing, right? But in business and stuff, that same thing happens. If you have the same leader for 7 years, it's probably about time to change leadership. Look at, Terry Collins. He was there for a long time, and he finally was able to, after years of struggling, was able to get up there and almost win a World Series. And that's what you have to do. And then it became probably a little stagnant, so they made a move. And then, you got to give your players, you got to give your coaches a chance. And I think that's kind of where they were with some of these players that just got were able to just walk away without much of a fight. I think they got to the point where they understood, hey, maybe some cultural changes for whatever reason, not because we don't love Nimmo, not because we don't love Diaz or Alonso and what they've done for this organization, but maybe it's just time to change the playbook a little bit and see if we can win that way. We've tried everything else. It's not working. Let's go do this.
Yeah, better work. All right,
yeah,
Chris.
Better work.
So what about the Yankees? The Yankees have been pretty quiet so far. I mean, they signed Rosario, which, Mick, you like Rosario played for you. You liked Rosario as a player, right?
Yeah, I did. I really did. Obviously, we're talking about Ahmed, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. I really liked him. I had him when he was very young, some plate discipline issues, some stuff like that. But as far as just a young player, playing a very difficult position, as a young player playing shortstop, he did a tremendous job. I thought he always profiled as more of a center fielder or something for me. With his speed and things like that. But, I like him. And not only do I like him as a player, but he's one of the best individuals I've ever been around. Just always upbeat, always smiling, and always playing very hard. Amazing kid.
What's going on with the Yankees, Chris?
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think a part of why both New York teams are a little bit hesitant this year to spend that big money to go after the big contract because of what might happen next offseason with the labor relations, lockout possibility, all that stuff? Do you think that has anything to do with it? Or no?
I'm sure all that's in the back of some of their minds. But you know what? I have to say, I don't mind the Yankees roster that much. Hopefully you're going to be getting one of your stud pitcher back, right? Is he going to be back for the beginning of the season?
Well, Cole and Rodon's going to maybe miss the first month. Cole, I think, is the first 2 months. They said Cole is June, Rodon probably May.
Right. So you get those two guys back. I like their roster. So maybe they're thinking the same thing. Like, hey, had things been different, had we had Cole last year, we would have been in the World Series. And they probably would have been. So maybe that's what they're thinking. We're going to get those two guys back. We're in a good spot there. I don't know what's Bellinger going to do. Does anybody know?
He's waiting for someone to pay him what he wants right now, right?
Hey, listen, Boris is his agent, so we know what's going on with that. Chris, do you think if the Mets, because it looks like the Mets are signing a lot of ex-Yankees, right?
Yes. I could see him going to the Mets because he would be a perfect fit for the Mets, right? The Mets need a bat and they need an outfielder, right? And the guy could play all three positions in the outfield. He could play first base, which that's another position the Mets kind of need, right? So to me, he's a better fit for the Mets. I mean, he could fit on any team, but he's a great fit for the Mets because he's filling in the holes there.
Yeah, I'd love to see him roaming center field and protecting Soto a little bit. That'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, that would be. But the offseason's not over yet. The Mets and Yankees still have moves that they're going to make. So, Chris, what do you think? What do you think the Yankees are going to do?
I think they're not waiting on Bellinger, but I think they want to bring Bellinger back, but they don't want him at whatever price he's asking for. He's asking for like 6, 7, 8 years, they want him more in 5 years, probably, right? And whatever the amount is going to be. So I think they want that. If they don't get him, you know what? They still got Dominguez. You still got Spencer Jones, the other young kid who could possibly play left field there, or they'll try to bring in another outfielder, and they're probably going to get another pitcher, just so they could, get past that early part of the season.
Right.
Cole and that's the other thing too. Like Mickey, what about Cole coming back from Tommy John, and Rodon's coming back from the bone spurs in his elbow? Like how good can they be right away, or is it going to take a little while for them to get back into really top form?
I've seen both. I think probably more times than not, if we're talking about an ordinary starter, it's going to take a little time, right? It's going to take that time to get your feel back. I mean, we all saw, I had Shohei after his first Tommy John, and he came back and it was a nightmare. I think his first outing, he walked like 6 guys, just couldn't throw strikes at all. But if I had a guess, Garrett Cole is going to come back. If he's healthy, he's not going to have any problems throwing strikes, getting feel. He's going to be just fine. Bone spurs are not a big thing, so Rodon's going to be fine. I think so. So I think both of those guys are going to be fine. If he wasn't Garrett Cole, and with all the success and the ability to understand his mechanics and make pitches, he's very, very in tune with his craft. So he's going to understand what he needs to do at any given moment, in my opinion, to throw a strike or, compete until things get back to where he just is free and easy and not being very cautious with pitching. When I saw Shohei come back, Shohei had not pitched very much in the big leagues, for one. So you didn't really know how good he could be. So I think it was a little bit of a tough transition for him to come back. And he was also scared he was going to get hurt, because if he gets hurt, now he can't bat as well. So that's like a totally different thing. But, if I've seen starters that with not much experience have a tough time coming back throwing strikes, because they weren't as in tune with their craft and how their mechanics work and the biomechanics of their pitching motion. But Garrett Cole is not that guy. I don't see him struggling at all coming back from Tommy John surgery. He might be throwing 102.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Bill has a question for you. If you could put one player in the Hall of Fame, who would it be?
That is not in there currently?
Yeah.
Don Mattingly.
There you go.
Yeah. And not only just because his body of work, playing and coaching, he is an amazing, amazing, amazing guy. And I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he does. But if he gets in, you know what I'm going to say, Keith Hernandez.
Hey, I think Keith, you know what? I think the Hall of Fame doesn't make much sense to me. To me, it's for the fans,
right?
And it's for individual team fans as well. To me, Keith Hernandez should be in the freaking Hall of Fame.
Yep.
He should be. Right? Yes, he's was anybody else on Seinfeld kissing a lane? Trying to get to second base with a lane? That's Hall of Fame worthy in my book by itself.
That's right. So there you go.
I think that the Hall of Fame's doing it wrong, in my opinion. I think there needs to be more guys in there. If you're a guy like Keith Hernandez or Don Mattingly, let's get those guys in there.
I can't believe this hour has flown by already. But
it always does.
Chris, why don't you put up Mickey's site over there?
Yeah, so people can reach out to me. My email's underneath my name there. If we want to do virtual lessons, I'm also building pitching plans and off-season programs for little leaguers all the way up to pro guys. I've been working with 10-year-olds all the way up to pro guys, trying to get some pro guys back into the big leagues. So reach out if you guys need anything, and I'll help you out.
That's great. listen, before I say anything, Chris, do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's about it. Mickey, thank you very much for coming on
Absolutely.
and giving us the insight that nobody else can, and really appreciate it always.
Yeah,
Yeah,
anytime. Let's do it again soon. I want to get on with the puppet. Let's do it.
Yeah, so Bill, I was just going to say that. So he's watching right now. Great questions by Bill. Mickey wants to come on with you, so we will set that up in the future. But Mick, yeah, thanks a lot. We always appreciate it, and we love when you're on. And we'll talk to you soon. We'll be back Monday. We'll be back Monday at 3 p.m. I think it's just me and Chris. We've had a lot of guests. I think me and Chris just want to talk some baseball, and we'll let you know Friday night what's going on. But thanks again, Mick, and everybody just loves you on the show. Thanks.
Yeah, well, hey, if I could say something,
sure.
I've had something kind of happen in close proximity to me over the last week, and I just want to tell all the guys out there, when you see your brother or your father or your best friends over the holidays, just check in on them and see how they're doing. I think Henry David Thoreau said, men live lives of quiet desperation, and there's not a lot of support out there for men. And just check in on them, see how they're doing, let them know if they ever need to talk about anything, that you're there for them. We need to all be here for each other in this crazy world, and everybody deals with tough stuff. So just check on your bros and make sure everybody's good.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. Great words there, Mick. Thanks again, and we'll catch everybody Monday at 3